The freezing winds of New Mexico swept across the empty desert as Ethan Walker rode through a narrow canyon trail. The former cavalry scout had spent years living alone after leaving the army, avoiding crowded towns and the memories of the frontier wars. His horse moved slowly over the rocky ground while dark clouds gathered above the mountains. Ethan had planned to reach his isolated ranch before the storm arrived, but something beside the riverbank caught his attention. At first, he thought it was abandoned clothing lying among the stones. Then he noticed a hand moving slightly near the water. Ethan climbed from his horse and hurried toward the riverbank. A young Apache woman lay unconscious beside the stones, apparently injured after a violent struggle. Her hands were bruised, her face was covered with dust, and part of her traditional clothing had been torn during the attack. Fresh horse tracks surrounded the area, showing that several riders had recently passed through the canyon. Ethan knew helping her could bring trouble. Still, he could not leave an injured person alone in the wilderness. Carefully, he lifted her onto his horse and began riding toward his ranch while thunder echoed across the mountains. By the time Ethan reached his ranch, the storm had arrived. Rain struck the cabin roof while winds swept across the desert. Inside, Ethan placed the unconscious woman near the fireplace and used medical supplies from his cavalry days to clean her wounds. She slowly opened her eyes and looked at him with frightened eyes before falling asleep again. Ethan prepared some soup and added wood to the fire. His revolver remained close beside him. He understood that whoever had attacked the woman might have followed her tracks and could arrive at his ranch at any moment. Hours passed while the storm continued outside. Ethan sat near the fireplace, cleaning his rifle and thinking about the years he had spent in the cavalry. Memories of battles, families, and innocent people caught between soldiers and Apache warriors still haunted him. The mysterious woman remained silent whenever she woke. Ethan tried asking her name and who had attacked her, but she refused to answer. Eventually, exhaustion overcame him. He fell asleep in a chair beside the fire, unaware that the danger he feared was already moving closer. Outside, dark shapes traveled through the rain toward his isolated ranch. Before sunrise, Ethan suddenly opened his eyes after sensing movement. The Apache woman was standing over him, her face filled with fear and urgency. His hand moved toward the revolver, but she quickly grabbed his arm and whispered that armed men were nearby. They were searching for something hidden many years ago. Ethan stared at her, confused and suspicious. Then she spoke his name. She said the men hunting her carried information connected to his dead father, a man Ethan barely remembered discussing his military past. Outside, distant horse hooves echoed through the darkness, growing closer with every passing moment. As the first light appeared over the desert, Ethan stepped outside with his rifle and studied the hills around the ranch. Fresh horse tracks circled the property. Behind him, the woman finally introduced herself as Ayanna. She explained that she had traveled for weeks to find Ethan Walker. According to Ayanna, Ethan's father had secretly helped Apache families escape during a dangerous military campaign years earlier. He had disobeyed corrupt officers and saved people who were supposed to be captured. Before his death, an Apache chief had ordered Ayanna to protect the Walker family if those dangerous men ever returned. Ethan listened in disbelief. His father had never told him anything about secret rescues or Apache families. Ayanna then explained why she had awakened him before sunrise. During the night, she had heard riders surrounding the ranch. Ethan looked through the cabin window and saw several armed men moving near the barn. Their weapons and disciplined movements made it clear they were not ordinary bandits. Ayanna revealed that they were searching for an ancient tribal map. According to legend, the map led to hidden Apache gold somewhere in the mountains, and Ethan's father had been trusted to protect its location. Ethan denied knowing anything about the map, but Ayanna believed his father might have hidden it somewhere on the ranch. Outside, the riders moved closer as thunder rolled across the sky. Ethan barricaded the doors and checked the windows while Ayanna prepared herself for whatever came next. They came from completely different worlds, yet both understood that survival now depended on trusting each other. Ethan looked toward the dark, distant hills nearby and realized his quiet life was over. The armed riders had come for his family's secret, and before the night ended, Ethan would discover the truth about his father. Captain Cole and his armed riders surrounded Ethan's ranch before sunrise. Their horses moved quietly through the wet desert while rain continued falling from the dark clouds above. Ethan watched them through a narrow gap in the cabin window, keeping his rifle ready but refusing to fire first. Ayanna stood beside him, studying every movement outside. She recognized the leader immediately. Captain Cole had once served with Ethan's father during the military campaign years ago. According to Ayanna, Cole was one of the officers who had wanted the Apache families captured. Ethan realized the past had finally returned. Cole dismounted and walked toward the cabin, shouting Ethan's name through the storm. He demanded the ancient map and claimed that Ethan's father had stolen something that belonged to the government. Ethan knew the story sounded false. His father had never spoken about such a crime. Ayanna whispered that Cole was lying because he wanted the map for himself. Ethan asked how she knew so much, and she explained that her people had preserved the truth through stories passed between generations. Before Cole could reach the door, Ethan and Ayanna discovered a loose wooden board beneath an old table. Ethan pulled the board aside and found a small iron box hidden beneath the floor. The box was covered with dust and appeared to have remained untouched for many years. Inside was an old military diary, a faded photograph, and a damaged piece of parchment. Ethan immediately recognized his father's handwriting in the diary. His hands trembled as he turned through the pages. Most entries described military movements and secret orders, but the final pages contained something completely different. His father had written about Apache families, corrupt officers, and a secret that could place many powerful men in danger. Ayanna carefully examined the damaged parchment. Although much of the map had been destroyed, several mountain markings were still visible. She immediately recognized the symbols as belonging to an old Apache trail system. Ethan asked whether the map really led to hidden gold. Ayanna hesitated before answering. She explained that the gold was only part of the story. According to her people, the treasure had been placed in the mountains long before the military arrived. But Ethan's father had protected more than the treasure. He had also hidden evidence proving that several officers had betrayed their orders and attacked innocent families for personal gain. Suddenly, the cabin door shook violently. Cole's men had reached the entrance. Ethan quickly hid the diary inside his coat, while Ayanna folded the map and placed it beneath a loose section of the floor. The door shook again, but before the riders could break through, Ethan noticed a narrow opening behind the fireplace. His father had once told him that the ranch contained an old storage passage, although he had never explained where it led. Ethan moved the fireplace stones and discovered a dark tunnel beneath the cabin. He and Ayanna entered just as the front door finally burst open behind them. The tunnel led beneath the ranch and eventually opened near a dry riverbed. Ethan and Ayanna crawled through the darkness until they reached the open desert. Behind them, voices echoed from the cabin as Cole's men searched every room. Ethan wanted to return, but Ayanna warned him that the riders would eventually discover the passage. Instead, they followed the damaged map toward the mountains. Along the way, Ethan opened his father's diary and found a strange message hidden between two pages. It mentioned an old stone tower where the final truth had been protected for decades. As the sun began rising, Ethan and Ayanna reached the base of the mountains. They found the stone tower described in the diary, half buried beneath sand and broken rocks. Inside, they discovered old wooden boxes containing military records and letters. Ethan read through them and finally understood what his father had done. The gold had never been stolen. His father had hidden it to protect Apache families who had survived the military raids. The documents also contained the names of officers involved in the attacks. Captain Cole was among them. Ethan realized the map was dangerous because it could expose everything. Before Ethan could read another letter, the sound of horses echoed outside the tower. Cole had somehow discovered their trail and was approaching with his men. Ethan closed the box and prepared his rifle while Ayanna watched the entrance. Cole entered the tower and accused Ethan's father of betraying the army. Ethan finally confronted him, demanding to know why he had spent years hunting the map. Cole admitted that the treasure was valuable, but the documents were worth far more. If the truth became public, several respected men would lose everything. Ethan refused to surrender the evidence, knowing his father had died protecting it. Cole's men surrounded the tower, but Ayanna discovered another hidden passage leading deeper into the mountains. Ethan carried the documents while they escaped through the narrow tunnel. Behind them, Cole shouted that they could never hide forever. After several minutes, Ethan and Ayanna emerged onto a high mountain ridge overlooking the desert. Far below, the ranch appeared tiny beneath the morning sunlight. Ethan looked at his father's diary and realized that the old man had left him more than a secret. He had left him a responsibility. Ayanna looked toward the distant horizon and quietly warned him that Cole was not the only person searching for the truth.